Hello, and welcome to this week's live stream here on Life as a Cancer Survivor. In today's stream, I'm going to be talking all about what happens once treatment is over, from the physical side effects to the mental challenges that you have to deal with once you're done with treatment. So if you have any questions off the top of your head right now that you have, go on ahead and drop those in the chat for me. So I'll be ready to answer those here in a minute. So for anybody that's joining for the first time here, welcome. My name is Jelena, and I was diagnosed with stage 3 rectal cancer in May of 2016. For my treatment, I went through 28 days of oral chemotherapy and radiation. Then for my surgery, I had a lower anterior resection, also known as LAR surgery. During that surgery, I had 12 inches of my colon/rectum removed, plus 17 lymph nodes. And in order to make sure that that resected site where the colon and rectum were reconnected back to each other, to make sure they healed properly, I got a temporary ileostomy. So an ileostomy is where, for me, part of the small intestine is run out of your abdomen wall and your waste exits your body there instead of out of your butt. So I had that for 7 months. And during that time, I went through 8 rounds of the IV chemotherapy FOLFOX. Then June 5th, 2017, I had that ileostomy reversed. And that was the end of my treatment. So that is kind of the introduction to me. So let's go on ahead and let's get started with this live stream. All right, so while I'm waiting for questions to roll in for the beginning of this, I want to let you all know that I have been busy updating my website. I don't know how many of you are aware that I do have a website. On there, I put the transcripts for all the videos that I have posted here on YouTube. So if you want to go back and have like a hard copy or just like look at what I had said during there, it's on my website. Not everything is fully up to date, but I've got at least half of my videos have been put up there. I'm doing better about getting that updated a little more frequently. So if you haven't had a chance to check it out yet, it's just Life as a Cancer Survivor, all run together, one long word.com. I will put a link for it in the description. I didn't get it in ahead of time, so I have to wait till after the live stream is over to put that in there for you. But know that you can go over there. It has a timeline of my treatment and diagnosis and all of that. If you're a visual person and kind of want to see what my journey looked like from diagnosis to the end of treatment, that's there for you. And then I also have some links for some organizations that are near and dear to my heart that I worked with and can refer you to as great organizations to look into and connect with to help you through your cancer journey. So let's see, like I mentioned, we're talking about what happens after treatment is over. So for me, it was kind of a shock once you're all done and finished with it. And you're so busy in the middle of treatment that you don't really have time to breathe. And then all of a sudden, like, everything is over. So I follow on Instagram an account called The Cancer Patient. I highly recommend them if you're on Instagram and have not followed them. So I'm going to bring up a couple memes here that really hit the nail on the head as to what it's like once treatment is over. So this first one here, when you're going in, oncologist afterwards asking you, "Hi, how are you?" While you are freaking out in your head, wondering, what does he know? What happened? What's my blood work look like? What are the CT scan results? So you're freaking out. You want to know. I don't want to talk. I don't want to have any small talk right now, doc. Just tell me what the results are, and then I'll tell you how I'm feeling. So quickly, my oncologist realized that I wanted to know what was going on before we did any small chat, because I was always like, well, it depends on what kind of news you're going to give to me. So he learned as soon as he opened the door to come in for my follow-up appointments, immediately he told me what the test results were, and it's always been CEA's good, CT scan's clear. So then he says that like immediately. He doesn't even say hi. He just opens the door. CEA's good, CT scan's clear. How you doing? So that kind of puts that into perspective a little bit. How nerve-wracking it is going in, and it's good that my oncologist kind of caught on that that's what I want to know. That's what I want to hear first, and then we can do the small chat. This next one is life after cancer, me who just finished treatment, and the new normal. Now, this one, I don't know this cartoon. So if there's anybody there in the chat that knows what this cartoon is, please let me know. And I would love to know what exactly it is. So let's see here. Again, when you're done with treatment, the life afterwards just kind of like punches you right in the face. So it is not it's a transition that's a little rough. So let me do that. So we've got some people hopping in already in the chat and saying hi, hello. Let's see here. My husband is Caretaker John. He's in there in the chat, so he will help me out at times if I need some help with answering questions. Let me get back to this here. Okay, and let's see. Noma D17, hi Janelle. Oh, Liv, hello, welcome back, Liv. You're here in Florida. Okay, Noma D wants to know if I'm able to eat the foods I ate before cancer, or did I totally change my diet? Okay, so for the most part, I am eating about the same things that I did before my cancer diagnosis. I've gone through a big roller coaster of things I can eat, things I can't, off and on, post ileostomy reversal, because that can be a challenge and for many colorectal cancer patients. So, let me see here. So I'm thinking about what I ate before and after. So I think I eat everything that I ate before. It's just sometimes I have to watch as to how much I'm eating of certain things. So things that are very high in fiber, like lentils and like chickpeas and beans, those kinds of things. If I have a meal that's very heavy on those or based on those things, I need to make sure I'm not eating that day after day after day. Otherwise, it does result in lots of trips to the bathroom. So that is basically the only thing that changed. I will say that I take psyllium husk daily, and next live stream, and actually my next video and then live stream after that, we'll be discussing colonoscopy, because I just went in last Thursday for a colonoscopy. I will let you guys know it came out clear. Everything's good. I'm still cancer free. But I will go into more detail about what I'm doing right now, because the colonoscopy, like every time I go in, it kind of hits the reset button on what's going on inside of me digestive wise. So right now I'm just doing the psyllium husk, but before the colonoscopy, I would take psyllium husk in the morning and then an Imodium in the morning and in the evening to keep myself decently regular. And let's see. Oh, thank you, Liv. You've seen my blog and you like it. That's awesome. Alpha Dad, you've had similar symptoms to what I initially had. You're seeing your doc tomorrow. Very nervous. I feel you. I'm sure you're very nervous. Hopefully, you'll get some answers, and or he'll send you in for tests. I don't know if you've had any, like a CT scan, or if you've gone in for a colonoscopy or done like the Cologuard tests, which is just like a stool sample test where they check it for blood. So I will keep you my thoughts, and hopefully you'll get some answers, or you'll at least get closer to finding answers. Move on, get some tests done to find out what's going on. the symptoms that I had, since they're very similar, obviously it could potentially be colorectal cancer. But the symptoms that I had also could be the symptoms for other gastrointestinal issues as well, like Crohn's or IBS, ulcerative colitis. So I know our mind and Dr. Google always wants us to, or it always goes to the worst case scenario. That hopefully worst case scenario is not what's going on, but I'm glad that you're at least going in to try and figure out what's going on inside of you. Okay. So, Dr. Google says that the cartoon is regular show. Okay. Thank you, Caretaker John. All right. So as a reminder of like what my follow-up schedule for my appointments with doctors and whatnot are after cancer treatment. So I started out with appointments with my oncologist every 3 months for that first year post-treatment. And at those appointments every 3 months, I would go in to the oncologist. He would do like a physical exam, feel lymph nodes and stuff, check my breathing, heart rate, just kind of the basic physical things. But I would also go in before that to get my blood drawn, and I would receive the results from that blood draw at my oncologist appointment. And at that blood draw, they were mostly checking to see what my CEA level is. And the CEA, it stands for carcinoembryonic antigen, which it's a protein that's in your blood. And in many patients, it rises when there's cancer present. So that's like the least invasive way to check and see if there's cancer in your body. So they're checking that every 3 months. After that first year, then he moved it to every 4 months for me for years 2, 3, and 4. I went in for my most recent appointment with my oncologist in August, and everything has been clear. The CEA, CT scans, and everything showed no signs of cancer. So he finally was comfortable with letting me wait 6 months until my next appointment, so I don't go back in until February to see my oncologist. For CT scans, typically it's every 6 to 12 months. In my case, I was hospitalized the day after I finished chemo because I had extreme abdominal pain, and so they did a CT scan on me to see what was causing that pain. It turned out to be a blockage, but they also saw in that CT scan that I had no evidence of cancer. So I had some good news, at least, from that emergency trip to the ER. So then I had another CT scan 6 months after that, and that one showed no evidence of disease either. So my oncologist moved those to once a year. So I would go in once a year until my 5 years is up for those CT scans. And colonoscopies, I had one at my diagnosis. That's how they found the cancer. Then usually go in 1 year after treatment. My doctor said that he wanted me to go in 1 year after my surgery. So I went in 1 year after my surgery for my first follow-up colonoscopy. And that one showed no polyps. I didn't have anything in there. Came out all clear. So since that was clear, then I got to wait 3 years until my next one. So that 3 years was actually last week. So I had another follow-up colonoscopy. And I'll have to talk to the GI doc a little bit more because I'll see her right before Thanksgiving for a follow-up appointment. They didn't find any polyps or anything, but she did say she wanted to see me in 3 years instead of 5 years. So I was still waking up from the propofol when she was talking to me about that. So I'll have to ask her when I am not coming off of the anesthesia fog and see why she wants me to come back in 3 instead of 5 years. As far as like those follow-up appointments during COVID and how those are happening, I have had all of my follow-up appointments with my oncologist in April and August. I guess I've had 2. They've all been via video call. So he'll just call me and go over the results with me. The blood draws, I've been going into the cancer center to get my blood drawn. And then for my CT scan that I had in August, I also went into the cancer center. So for those, the cancer center that I go to, they're on the 4th floor of the building. So you go into the building and up the elevator, And then right outside, before you go into the offices where the cancer center is, they've got tables set up and there's multiple nurses out there that are taking your temperature, making sure you have a mask on. And they also ask you, like, if you've been in contact with anyone that had COVID, if you've been out of the country, those kinds of things. So they screen you before you go into the cancer center. Inside, they've got everything taped off, so you're supposed to stand, like, on this blue line. Don't get any closer to the reception desk than you have to. So they check you in. When you sit down, they've got all those chairs spaced out. But usually that waiting room under normal conditions was like 90% full anytime I would go in. Now it's maybe like 15 to 20% full. So there are not very many people in there because most people are doing a lot of follow-up appointments on video call. So anybody that's there is there for something that physically has to be done. And everyone, at least at my cancer center, has been good about staying spaced out, keeping your mask on at all times. So that's kind of how COVID has affected those follow-up appointments. So we've got a few more questions here. So I'm having my first colonoscopy next Tuesday. Oh my, Nomady. Good luck. I'm experiencing symptoms, but they're inconsistent. I'm 31, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. Yes, definitely better safe than sorry. So next Tuesday, yeah. My symptoms were a little inconsistent. It seemed like leading up to it as well. But like I'd mentioned with Alpha Dad, like sometimes things that seem like they could be colorectal cancer, those symptoms are very similar to symptoms of other gastrointestinal diseases. So hopefully they will find something and be able to alleviate those symptoms for you. I'll keep my fingers crossed that it's not cancer. But if it is, I wish you the best and I'm here for you. If you've got questions at all along the way, just reach out to me and I'm here. If you're on social media, there are plenty of others like myself that are out there that are willing to share their story and help others that have been diagnosed as well. So I'm glad that you're going in, you're listening to your body, you know something's wrong, and you're getting it checked out. So that's great. Liv wants to know, is there any indication medically on why you had cancer? Did the doctors have any inkling on why? That's a very good question. So they said that they tested me for Lynch syndrome, which Lynch syndrome is a genetic disease. It can be passed down from generation to generation, and it predisposes you to getting colorectal cancer. Let me see if I can remember all of them. Breast cancer, ovarian cancer, I think stomach cancer. I say breast cancer, I believe so. So it predisposes you to getting a lot of these cancers. So if you have Lynch syndrome, your follow-up schedule is a lot different. They're monitoring you much more closely because your chances of getting cancer are much more higher than the average person. So initially they said I tested negative and the doctors said it was just a freak accident basically that happened why I got cancer. I spoke with a doctor at the Colon Cancer Prevention Project, which is based out of Louisville, Kentucky. I did an interview with him. He has Dr. Whitney Jones has a podcast called Cancer Fight. So he is a GI doctor and he works for the Colon Cancer Prevention Project there and is doing this podcast to promote organ awareness about colorectal cancer, talks to patients and medical professionals in the field. So in my interview with him, I mentioned that they kind of tested me for Lynch, that I thought they tested me for Lynch and I tested negative. But he asked if I knew exactly what kind of testing they did. And I said, I don't know what they did to figure that out. So he said if they are checking just the biopsy from the tumor that they took the biopsy of from the colonoscopy, that had a chance of only being like 20% accurate. So he recommended that I follow up with my oncologist and see what kind of testing they did. And figure out, because I could theoretically still have Lynch, or there could be some other genetic, some gene that I have that predisposed me to it. So since everything is like online now, I sent a message to my oncologist. It took a few days before his nurse saw that I had sent the message, and then passed it along to him. And then I got a message finally saying a genetic counselor is going to be contacting you about doing genetic testing. So apparently they didn't do very thorough genetic testing when I went in and when I was initially diagnosed. So I actually have a virtual meeting with the genetic counselor next Friday. So they also mentioned when they were setting that appointment up that I would be getting a kit in the mail, and I would have to swab myself, and I would send that back in for genetic testing. So I did not have, I'm going to be checked to see if there is some kind of genetic part to that. Because no one in my family, in my immediate family, has had colorectal cancer. It was a great grandparent that had it, which isn't really close enough of a relative and not frequent enough for any doctor to really call that a family history. That would make me more susceptible to being diagnosed with colorectal cancer. So hopefully we'll get those results back, and I'll find out either, yeah, you still don't have any genetics that caused it. It was still just horrible luck, or maybe I'll find something and then I can pass that information along to my family so that they can be more aware of what they could potentially be carrying or have. And then it'll also be important for my daughter to know that information as well, because she already is going to have to go in for her very first colonoscopy at age 24. So if there's some kind of genetic part to my cancer, then we're going to watch her even closer. And then we'll just know how to stay on top of things and make sure that if any cancer or anything else pops up, that we can catch it early and treat it much more easily than having to go through round and round of chemo, surgeries, and all of that stuff. Okay, so let's see here. All right. So thank you guys. If you are just now joining us, my name is Jelena, and in May of 2016, I was diagnosed with stage 3 rectal cancer. In this live video, I'm talking about any questions that you might have about what happens after you finish cancer treatment, or just in general about colorectal cancer. So if you have any other questions, go on ahead and type them in the chat while I am talking here. And let's see here. Noma D. Has your immune system improved? I know during treatment that the immune system is affected. Yes. Okay, so has my immune system improved? It has a little bit, but it's still my white blood cell count, which the white blood, that one, it is just a little below normal. And the lymphocytes, the other half that goes in with that as far as your immunity goes, that one, it's like right at the bottom. So it has not fully recovered, and I am 3.5 years out from treatment. I don't really have any answers as to why. My oncologist doesn't really consider me to be immunocompromised anymore. And he actually asked me at my last appointment in August if I had gone on vacation at all lately. It's like, no, we're kind of in the middle of a pandemic. We have not been going on vacation. So I never got sick a whole lot prior to my diagnosis. So I haven't really gotten sick a whole lot since then. So that doesn't really match up with my immune system being slightly compromised, unless I'm just really good at avoiding people that are sick and like not touching my face with my hands much and washing my hands very well. But I worry that like if I do get sick, then my immune system is not as strong as it could be, and it'll take me a lot longer to recover from things. So since I am immunocompromised, kind of, I always go in for my flu shot every year now. And it was also recommended to me that I get a pneumonia shot because of my immunocompromised-ish status. So I have, even though that's typically for, I don't know what the lower age limit, it's usually like around 50, 60 is when it's recommended to get a pneumonia shot. I've got mine already. I got it last year, I believe. So at like 37, 38 years old, I got the pneumonia shot just to make sure that I've got my bases covered and that I'm protected from anything turning too horrible if I do get sick. Okay, so we've got a new person in the chat here, Rody Fernandez. I was diagnosed with colon stage 3B sigmoid colon cancer. Had laparoscopic gynae. Now I'm going to begin chemotherapy next week. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, welcome to the chat, Rody. Sorry to hear about your diagnosis, but it sounds like you are right on track with what you need to be doing to try and get rid of this cancer from your body. Let's see. So you're going to begin chemotherapy next week. So that's a big step in getting rid of this. Have you gotten a port placed yet? I got mine in like a week before I started chemo. And I know some people, like, the day they start chemo, like, they get the port placed and then they get chemo in that brand new port, which sounds a little rough to me. But if the doctors believe that your body can handle it, then you've got to trust them. So let's see here. Sam, hello, Sam. Is it okay to delay FOLFOX chemo session for more than 3 weeks? I don't know the answer to that question. I'm not an oncologist. I know, for me, I did have one of my, rounds of chemotherapy was delayed by a week. So it was 3 weeks in between the sessions instead of 2. So typically, they'll delay a week of treatment because your white blood cell count is low or your platelets are low. And I think those are the major things. Because if the white blood cell count gets way too low, then your immune system is basically shot and somebody 50 feet away could sneeze and you'd probably get it. As far as the platelets, my platelets dropped, and that's what caused me to delay my chemo by 1 week. When the platelets drop, that means that if you got cut and you bleed, it's not gonna clot, so you could bleed out, which is not good either. So I hope that kind of answered your question there. Hi, Tamara. Thanks for throwing in your 2 cents there. Yeah. Oh, I guess I read it as it's more as delaying it like as you're in the middle of treatment. I guess if you're talking about like after surgery waiting, I waited 6 weeks after my surgery before I got started with my FOLFOX chemotherapy. So if that was part of the question, then hopefully that kind of answers it as well. Okay, yeah, so Rody said, oh, hi Tracy, hello, welcome. Rody, yes, the portal's going in next Thursday, and then Friday starting chemo. Oh, going to get Xeloda in 14 days. Okay, so you're going to be doing the Xeloda and, let's see, wait, did you say are you doing just the Xeloda, or are you going to do, so I'm assuming you're doing FOLFOX as well, since you're getting a port placed as well. So how are the side effects of the chemotherapy? Of course, it varies from person to person. For me, the Xeloda wasn't as bad as doing the FOLFOX. The FOLFOX, the side effects, I guess, are just like the Xeloda side effects amplified is what FOLFOX is like. And yes, Tamara, radiation was worse for me as well. Because I had rectal cancer, so the radiation was aimed at the rectum, and I was still going to the bathroom out that end. So having stool passing over where you're getting radiated is not fun. But the Folfox, it kind of compounds the side effects as you get started. So the first round might feel okay, just a little tired. But as you get further and further along, the fatigue starts to build up a little more. The immediate side effects that I felt on Folfox, I had that cold sensitivity. So while I was in the middle of my first session at chemotherapy, I just had a room temperature water bottle that I was drinking water from. And all of a sudden, I took a sip from it and it felt like I was swallowing glass. So that is kind of part of that cold sensitivity. That lasted for about 3 to 4 days each round of chemotherapy. So I only could drink warm beverages, and even room temperature had that glass swallowing feeling. So everything had to be warmed. So I had to be creative on what kind of warm beverages I could drink or what I could warm up and drink. Because warm water for me, I got tired of that really fast. Luckily or not luckily, I was doing chemotherapy in the wintertime. I started in December, and I live in Colorado, and I finished it in March. So it was cold for pretty much all of it. So drinking warm beverages wasn't bad for me. But then I also experienced the cold sensitivity, like when the wind would blow, it felt like needles stabbing me in the face. So I had to cover up my face as much as I could when going outside. I did get some of the tingling in my feet, that neuropathy. It wasn't painful while I was going through chemotherapy. It didn't really start to turn painful or it felt like my feet were burning until like the summertime. So a couple months after I actually finished chemotherapy. So if you start experiencing that neuropathy in your feet and start feeling that tingling, make sure that you let your oncologist know, let them know the details of how long it's lasting, and keep track of that, because if it starts to, for me, it would come and then it would go after a few days. And then when I had my next round of chemo, it would come back. And then after a few days, it would go away again. But then it started lasting longer and longer. So I made sure to keep my oncologist aware of that. So then by the last round of chemotherapy, they took out the oxaliplatin, which is the part of the Folfox that causes the cold sensitivity and the neuropathy. So they took that completely out for my last round because they didn't want to have any further damage happen to my nerves in my feet. So those were kind of the major side effects that I felt. I did my hair thinned. I didn't lose it all, but I can definitely tell in pictures, like it looks really scraggly and thin, versus now it's grown back a decent amount now. It's still not as thick as it used to be, but I'm getting older as well, so I'm at that age where my hair is just going to start thinning naturally. So I'm at that point now where it's hard to tell if some of these lingering side effects are because of the chemotherapy or just because I'm getting older, and that's what happens when you get older. So you get that fun guessing game of, is it the Folfox or is it me getting old as to why you're having these problems? Okay. So Tracy says she's experiencing the cold sensitivity side effect and the metallic taste. Yes, I forgot about that, the metallic taste. And so I ended up, that was another reason why I couldn't drink just the warm water, because water tasted gross. Actually, for me, it started tasting like rubbing alcohol almost. So, the metal taste, though, is not uncommon as well. It's not uncommon for your taste buds to kind of change while you're going through chemotherapy. You just have to experiment with what tastes good to you and what doesn't. But it does go away after your treatment is over. Most of the time, it should. It'll definitely ease up. Other like weird kind of like the taste kind of thing and the smells, I would smell like cooked cabbage when I would shower. And I don't know what caused that. I had my husband come into the shower and like smell it. I'm like, can you smell it? And he didn't smell anything. So my sense of smell got messed up a little as well. And even to this day, occasionally when I'm in the shower, I get that cooked cabbage smell. That reminds me of being on chemo again. So it can still like crop up and just kind of, surprise you here and there. But as far as like my taste buds and everything, I'm okay with drinking water again, which I should take a drink of water because I haven't drank anything yet and I'm getting a little thirsty. Okay. So water tastes okay to me now. Foods are all tasting fine to me. So that taste you will get your taste buds back. It's just kind of a temporary thing. Let's see. Tracy also wants to know if I had nausea and loss of appetite during the week of chemo. Yes, I did. The first round was the worst one. So I would get an anti-nausea medication infused into me during my chemotherapy infusion. And then I was written a prescription for Zofran. I forget what the generic is, but that's what I had to take once I got home. And they instructed me, I would usually go in for chemo in the morning. So they told me at dinner time to take that first pill. So I waited until dinner time to take that first pill after my first round. But it didn't help. And I was nauseous. I wasn't so nauseous that I was throwing up, but I made me lose my appetite and I wasn't super hungry for a few days. So after that first round, I don't remember if the oncologist suggested it or if a friend that was also going through chemo suggested it. But for the following rounds, as soon as I got home from chemo, I took that first anti-nausea med pill. And from then on, I would take them for as long as I had the pump hooked up to me. So once I got home from chemo, for the next 2 days, I would take that anti-nausea medication. And that managed to keep the nausea at bay, and I didn't have much troubles with nausea. My appetite did go down, but it also could have gone down because I wasn't as active as I was because of the chemotherapy. I did a lot more sleeping, so since I wasn't exerting as much energy, maybe my body was kind of naturally compensating for that by making me not as hungry. So that was kind of my experience with what helped with the nausea. Okay. And Liv, is anybody in your family or friends going for colonoscopies just to check? Yes. My sister went in and got a colonoscopy since she is an immediate blood relative and I was diagnosed so young. It took her like a year to go in. Oh, yeah. So there she is. She chimed into the chat. My parents have been going in for their routine colonoscopies. They are beyond the age of 45 when you need to go in for your first colonoscopy. So they have been screened and they are on their regular schedule. One of my aunts actually had not been in for her colonoscopy yet. And I bugged her and bugged her and bugged her. And she went in for her colonoscopy finally. And it came out clear. My husband wanted to go in for like a sympathy colonoscopy, just kind of see how crappy it was. But the doctors would not let him go in for a colonoscopy since he wasn't showing any symptoms and he didn't have any family history. So as like a consolation prize, they gave him the Cologuard test, which is one of those take-home tests where you get like a little vial and it's got... if you know those little like Christmas tree, like teeth flosser things or stuff that you use to like get stuff out, like if you have braces to get food out, or if you've got bridges and stuff to get around metal in your mouth. So it was a little smaller than that, but you basically swirl that around in your poop and you send that. And actually, I think he took that back to the lab and then they ran the test. So that came back negative for any blood or anything, so he was not referred for a colonoscopy. He will be going in as soon as he turns 45 so he can get that awesome experience. And yeah, so that is who in my family has kind of gone in for those colonoscopies. Rody wants to know during chemo, can you color your hair? Let's see. I've heard mixed opinions on that from different people's oncologists. Some people, their oncologist says it's okay. Others, they say no. I did not color my hair during chemo. Let me see. I did color my hair once while I was going through radiation and the oral Xeloda. Because my sister was getting married right in the middle of radiation oral chemotherapy, so I wanted my hair to look nice for her wedding and all those pictures. So I did dye my hair right before then, so I was like 2 weeks into radiation and Xeloda, but then after that, I did not dye my hair at all for the rest of time during treatment. And let's see here. Okay, so we have had a lot of great questions in here. I'm so happy all of you guys have come in to join me, and we've got quite a few people here watching, some new people in here. I'm glad to see some newbies join us. We'll answer one more question here by Liv. Any thoughts on immunotherapy? I know of immunotherapy. I did not do any immunotherapy. I do know of 2 people that I am friends with that are going through it right now. So one of them, I met him in person when I went out to Washington, D.C. for Fight Colorectal Cancer's Colon Congress. He also lives here in Colorado. And he was on immunotherapy. When he was diagnosed, he was stage 4 and was given less than a year to live. So he tried traditional chemotherapy, and then based on his genetics that they ran, they put him on an immunotherapy, and that immunotherapy worked for him, and it got him to no evidence of disease when they thought he was going to be killed by cancer. So it is now 5 years after his diagnosis, and he still has no evidence of disease. He just stopped taking the immunotherapy within the past couple of months because he was starting to have some health troubles, and they weren't sure if it was from the immunotherapy or just from the cancer itself. So he's taking a break from the immunotherapy right now, but he still has no evidence of the disease and is kicking and going on and enjoying life. And then I know another friend who she went through chemotherapy, and then after the chemotherapy was done, she's got no evidence of the disease, but they wanted to try this immunotherapy on her as well. So she is doing that for the next year. And the only side effect that I know of that she talks about frequently is like the inflammation. Her joints can get kind of achy. She's an active person, so every now and then it does bother her, like in her knees and the hands. The inflammation can get a little bit painful. But otherwise, I think immunotherapy is a great option, and hopefully we can figure out one day how to get it to work for more patients, because I think it's great that you can, get your own immune system to figure out how to kill that cancer and to get it out of you, rather than having to resort to chemotherapy, which is basically poisoning you to the point that enough that you don't die, but enough that the cancer dies. So let's see. How after your port was... Let's see, how after your port was removed? I'm guessing how long after I was finished with treatment. You want to know how long after that I had the port removed? So I finished treatment, and March 30th was when they disconnected the pump from me. March 30th, 2017. When I had my ileostomy reversed on June 5th of that year, they took the port out as well. So they just did it like 3 months after. Because I had no evidence of the disease, so they said you might as well go on ahead and take it out. So I wanted it out because it wasn't painful all the time, but it's in a location I couldn't raise my arm up over my head. It hurt to do that, and other things, it bothered me occasionally. So I wanted to get it out. I know some people keep it in for a while. If you keep it in for much longer than that, though, after you're finished with treatment, you have to go into the cancer center to get that port flushed. And I forget exactly how often it is, and it might vary a little bit. It's definitely, I don't think it's more than I don't think I can wait longer than 3 months, because blood clots can form where the catheter of the port is going into your vein. So you have to go in and get that flushed if it's not being used. So I wanted to get it out as soon as possible. So that's what I did. Well, thank you all for all your great questions this evening. That's all the time that I have for today. So for anybody that's new here, if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure that you click down below on the subscribe button so that you will know when my next live video happens and you'll never miss any of my other videos that I publish. I'm so happy that you guys could all join me today, and thank you so much for watching. Have a great evening.